Good morning, guys. This is going to be an interesting. Thank you, Anil, for this great. We appreciate this opportunity to get us here, and we will talk and give you all the. I'll see this the entire. I think the first area that we will obviously talk about, which is very, very relevant to especially general entertainment channels and even the young channels and channels of yore, which were youth channels, have become now fiction channels. So we will obviously first start about fiction content. And my question, I like whether it's producers or broadcasters, I'm not going to specify who the question is meant for. I want broadcasters to jump in the fray if they feel that they are controlling, and if it's a broadcasters market, then they'll have to probably answer about 80% of the questions. And so, my first question for debate or for general inciting is that when it comes to fiction content on TV, weekdays, Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, is primarily family soap, except for maybe Life OK. You have daily soaps from Monday to Saturday, in two cases, that is Star Plus, and then you have obviously Star Plus and Colors, and then for Zee and Life OK and Sony, you have Monday to Friday. So, is this the only business model that can monetize for when it comes to Indian viewer behavior? Is this the only way we can structurally sort of divide? Is that the only? Because earlier there used to be about 8-9 years, about 10 years back, there were these 1 hour. Of course, there are stray examples like Bigg Boss happening, but at the end of the day, it's still a Monday to Friday. It's still almost, the narrative is that of a daily. So my first question is that. So I'll probably start with Sanjay because he's.
Hello. To begin with, I would say that there have been programmers across different channels who have tried to break away from this thing, because initially it was never so. We would always start off with a weekday kind of programming, but somewhere along the lines this came as a habit and it went on to become way of life for all of us. Speaking for myself, I can always say that even when I was in Sony, I did try to come up with weeklies, and where I am right now, I do try the bi-weeklies, 1 hour bi-weeklies. But the fact is, the addiction level that you expect from the consumer or from the viewer is not as strong as that of a day. The stories that we tell are required to be so engaging, so high-powered. The moment that you let go of something, that people tend to get away from it. This has become I'm not here to kind of judge the viewer mindset and sort to make an opinion on that. But this pattern of viewing has become such an extended way of our watching television that it's very difficult to break away from this right now.
Is it also a function of, the fact that your half-hour cost for a weekday daily soap is going to be in a certain range, and then, so is it also it's just what Tarun just said.
No, like I said, the economics do play a big role in that decision making, but to give credit to the makers, when Imagine started, for example, they started off with this format. So there are programmers who keep trying to make an effort to kind of break away from this mold, only for the simple reason that all stories cannot be told in the similar way, with the similar format, with a similar sort of a pitch. So there are other stories waiting to be told in a different way. But the sad part is that, yes, of course, like you're saying, you are economically driven, and at the end of the day, you have to succumb to that pressure and sort of accept the fact. That's why you find probably there's a 95 and 5 sort of a thing where.
But you now don't imagine that we will ever have 1 hours on weekdays, because weekends are of course showing that kind of. Pradeep, you would like to probably.
It's a very interesting question, and I think for any broadcast to succeed, it has to first recognize that you have to build a habit, and you have to understand the habit, and you have to take the habit to the next level. Right? So you can't be random in terms of deciding that this is what you want to do and everybody should follow, because you're not operating in an environment where the economics support narrowcasting content. So you need to have, you are a broadcaster, and therefore you have to understand that you cater
this is
to
only coming
millions
from
of
the
viewers.
point that maybe other genres, I mean, I'm actually diverting the question from, to also include aesthetics and the kind of stories that need to be told, and also the genre that can be. So for a family drama or a love story, Monday to Saturday seems easy, but are we being able to bring, because other genres will automatically never be brought to the platform, maybe, except on weekends, as I said.
Sure. So, firstly, I think we should rest this myth that Monday to Friday, day-to-day shows that happen dailies are easy, to make. And I think, there are people in this room who fume and, huff about dailies. So it's not an easy thing to make, when it comes to a daily, because you really have to make sure that your storylines are plotted well, it's a journey that you plot. There are critical, and you've been in this space as well, so, nobody requires that kind of education. But on your question on whether there's an opportunity to introduce different texture, there is always an opportunity. The manner in which you migrate the audience from a particular behavior to a different behavior requires some amount of, thought through crafting. So for instance, if you look at what we've done now with the Super Weekends initiative, we've attempted to really get different variety content converging on a Saturday and Sunday, and therefore create an environment which goes back to introduce, interesting variety. So when you want to attempt something like that on a working day, we need to understand the, the life stage and the way that a person consumes television, and then evaluate where do you have that opportunity to be able to create something, which is meaningful. It's not an easy thing, and I don't think the onus is only on the producer or only on the broadcaster. It's really a collective effort that needs to happen if something like that has to happen. People have, always turn around and wonder broadcasters do not encourage, innovation. I really feel
I would agree to that. They don't encourage. I would say that very strongly because Cinevistas is a company. If you've seen any of our shows, most of us, barring one on Z, which was a long time ago, Vivaha or something. That was one Sasbahu show, but Ek Hasina Thi, or any of the shows that we've done, are all differentiated within the medium, but differentiated concepts and different.
So that differentiation is a different, obviously gets...
Yeah, I'm sure. But I was getting to the point of Sukesh, that's what I wanted to come to. So, we did Sanjeevni, I was part of that, there was Kehta, but there was a band, a 9 to 10 band, which came at one point of time, 95, I think so. After that, I don't think so anybody, because thanks to our friend Ekta, QK came and it did well, and then many other shows did well on that daily band and started economically making sense to lots of people. I'm seeing on a live, okay, yes, they're still trying to do it, but generally on all channels, the 1 hour a week, the 1 hour slot, like Sukesh said, no one is even in the last 17 years of my active working in the last, I would say, after Sanjeevni got over, no one's even tried to do that from our side.
Interesting point for me to bring up, I'm sorry, Sukesh. But, the fact is, you don't remember a show that you did for me when I was in Sony, which was 1 hour week. So that's the recall value. You see, you last remembered probably as Sanjeevni. So like Paddy's saying, see, the broadcaster does make an effort. Broadcaster, at the end of the day, whether it's Sukesh or me or, the people who have been on various different sides of this business. So, we're not really or Shalda for that matter, So, we know a fact that these people are very well-rounded in terms of creative, growth. So, people are always willing and trying to, but the pressures are very heavy. Pressures are very heavy, maybe we absorb it more being inside. And I know the kind of tantrums as a director I used to face, throw, or sort of, as a creative head in the production house, how I have behaved, and what is the sort of pressure that I face when I'm inside the channel. So, when you have this 360-degree view, you know that there are people around who are willing to change the dynamics because they believe in it, But there are different. Everybody has a different
I
reason to
guess
kind
what the
of.
larger point that one wanted to make was A, FPC. B, also to do with the fact that maybe there could be, as Purnendu just put it a while back, that Z used to do X zones and Saturday suspense. So Monday to Friday there would be one story. So the format of storytelling was still Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday, but it was different stories being told instead of one larger macro sort of story.
Nitsukesh, it was never Monday to Friday. It was weekly. 1 hour, one story.
Okay.
It was
So
always like
later there was this Saturday, there was this suspense series.
Saturday suspense.
That was, no, not Saturday suspense. Later they took a, I think after you exited and once the dailies had begun, there was this one series that they did Monday to Thursday, one story being told.
I always feel that that is a very interesting format, and I suggested this format to other channels also. We start a story on Monday and we finish it on Friday.
With the promise for what is coming.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that format somehow was always rejected by all the broadcasters because उन्हें ये लगता है कि जो लॉयल व्यूअर्स हैं या जो एडिक्शन फैक्टर जो हम बात कर रहे हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं अगली स्टोरी में अगर वो नहीं आए तो फॉर दैट वन वी विल लूज.
So essentially we are in the trap where the characters like Sandhya and Suraj or Diya Bharti or Manav or Archana Pavitra or whatever, these characters have become so big once we sort of that they drive a show then so long that you can't really think of anything else than long format stories on weekdays. Is what
Sukesh, if I can, just interject because I, certainly feel that, Sanjay, for instance, and you have done different sides of the table, so you appreciate this. But for the general awareness of the audience here, I think it's important to, keep a few facts in mind. One is that, today we are also working in a 10+2 sort of situation, right? So when we start talking about building characters, it doesn't happen just out of thin air. So you have to promote, you have to write the scripts for that, you have to make sure you're able to give them enough time to be resonating out there, you have to build different dimensions of a character. Now the more number of shows you put on, the lesser is the time available for you to build each one. So, and you're working in an environment today which is a consumer is attention deficit period, so it's not easy, to get something to lock in there. And if you look at the way that we are building our promo, science over a period of time, etc., unless production houses understand it, I think it's just prescription which is very easy to write.
So I basically what we've come down to is attention deficit of our consumer.
That's it. So we need to keep that in the back of our head as the most intrinsic challenge that we as an industry face. And
but that is also because of the fact that there are 5 GSCs that are competing or vying for attention.
So you can't stop GSCs from entering the fray, and that's why the industry grows, right? So what is important is for all of us to understand is that, change will come, but for change to come, a lot of prior work needs to be done. So, whether it is show development, whether it is time band development. For instance, today the Saturday Sunday that we've created, we started about 5 months ago to envisage that we will actually create a super weekend blog. And one by one, persistently we put shows there. Are they big rating shows? They're not.
We don't know.
But they're very interesting, different flavor shows, and we've made it a agenda to make sure that they will stand out. Now, it will take time because it is going against the grain of behavior.
We do at times think about the fact that there were TV channels used to be a great amalgamation of all genres. There used to be a science fiction show also once on Star Plus. It sort of bombed pretty badly, but it was made as an attempt. But earlier on DTV, of course, we've seen all kinds of. Anyway, so that is to do with genres. If there's the other thing that I wanted to put to the table was new audiences, and especially it's a question for broadcasters that when it comes to new viewer and when it comes to this lament that there's always this lament that evolved mindsets, or there is a certain category of viewers which certain category, I'm not using any inverted commas here, I'm being as honest, and I don't know the numbers you would probably. So there is a certain viewer, a younger viewer maybe, a viewer that probably appreciated the first 100 episodes of Balika Vadhu, because I was told that there were lots of new viewers that came in at that point in time. So there is a viewer that probably appreciates literature, there's a viewer that appreciates good pulp, intelligently done pulp. There's a viewer that appreciates, now there's a younger viewer that probably is already exposed to, of course, the standards of execution is another question that I'm going to put in after that in with Sumit. But the larger context is that is there a business model, and I'm not talking about the Zindagi experiment, which is interesting in its own way, but I'm talking that for when it comes to GC, can there be a GC for India, to put it, and then can there be a GC for Hindustan and Bharat? I mean, I'm just using these terms saying that, okay, there is this mass India, mass consumption, which drives our general entertainment channels, and that's the business model. But is there somewhere space for a GC? I mean, of course, there has been Sawan in the past, and there has been, but then that was too male-centric, and it didn't probably include women. So this is another question that I wanted to put to our panel, so that is there something there which we are not wanting to look at, or is it just too tough to create a business model? Are the business bigwigs, media bigwigs don't want to, or is it the advertiser? Or is it the way our TAM that has been measuring? So there are lots of elements to this question. It's a bigger one. But
let me put it across the way it appears to me, and obviously this industry is all about subjectivity, so it goes perfectly in the vein of that. But it's important to understand that we work in a transient society, right? So it's always moving. For all of us who put out content every day, we need to recognize that it is always moving, right? So our content also evolves over a period of time, reflecting culture, identifying new aspects of culture and putting it on. So when you start looking at a GEC and say, is there an India and a Bharat? The important question to bear in mind is that there is a big group of individuals who come to television, and you invest to understand how things are changing for them. What are the things that are affecting their lives? What are the things that are making a change to them? What are the seeds that they're taking from what they're watching? What motivates them day in and day out? Why do they come to the screen? And are there other latent needs that one can actually step on and convert it into a programming concept? So that's a parallel exercise that we as broadcasters do. Bring that back and then look at concepts that come in that space, that can actually stand up and attempt to address the transient, moving lot. Now, when you really do this exercise, the challenge all of us as broadcasters face is you can't put a finger down on how large or how small that segment is, because you identify it through qualitative insighting. So it might not be a big show when it starts, but over a period of time, when you stay that course, you build a very nice kind of a different segment. Now, when you just look at it from a TAM figure point of view, it just looks like, oh, it's the same in the general entertainment mass. But if you really look at it from what you're doing with those consumers, it's a very different thing that you're doing. So, as programmers, I'm sure you'll appreciate that every single show, whether it's Nisha or Uski Cousins, where it started with an attempt of, its content philosophy, or whether it's now Satrangi Sasural that we're doing, which again looks like a big family show, but they're very, very different in terms of how they respect, recognize Indian culture, and how Indian culture has changed as generations have come in, and we reflect that change, and we stay with that change. We are the people who do not need to be given a placard saying this is your responsibility, but it's a necessity for survival, for you to constantly keep moving your goalposts, because the audience is moving his anyways.
No, fair. So, I mean, essentially there's always that little debate that which Tarun just put it in the last session, that a consumer is at the epicenter, and if your consumer, which is of course a very broad term, because there is an audience probably waiting in every pocket for something.
Consumer is after he's consumed you. So I would just say that there are people, and then you try to make sure that they continue to consume. So you need to figure out where the opportunity is, where there might be some leakage in consumption, and you try to consolidate that. So, it's a mind and, programming and a promo and all of these pieces coming together. So, what I would really like to hear is the kind of consumer insighting that writers or production houses are keen to do or do. Because we do a lot of stuff and we're doing more and more to understand. So if you really need to understand that vein and fiber, and you want more success rates, with broadcasters to get it, then as a production house too, you need to put your foot out there and get out and meet consumers. It's important to understand that. Now we do that.
I mean, there is of course that debate that art has to find its own audience. So of course we'll have to, for example, Mukesh, he was just telling me a while back that he's been able to do. There are times when he's been able to bring literature to TV screen. I mean, you'll tell me, so.
Yeah, because for us, consumer doesn't matter. For us, the citizens of this country matter for the simple reason that we are not competing with any channel. We have a different mandate altogether, which is public service broadcasting. And for us, the entire universe is not between 7 to 11 o'clock in the evening of television. It is beyond that also. For example, recently, if you have seen the ratings DD Dopaher, because we are showing new programs there, people are content, they are watching there, and it is number one, in fact, in all homes. So, it also depends as to how we are looking at it. Coming back to our own content, yes, because we have to produce a content which is not the usual content in the sense that the consumer has to consume it. We also have in a subtle fashion, we need to address it with a little, you may say, a message or whatever it, but with a glamour quotient also. For example, events have been very successful with us. I was giving an example to you that one of the events which we did for the last 3-4 years, which has been supported by the advertisers, is on every second Sunday there happens to be a Mother's Day. Now we know Valentine's Day, we know so many days, and to start it, content is being produced accordingly or focus or position. In our case, we tried to do that. We invited some mothers and daughters, and the successful mothers in the spectrum was from Shabana Azmi saying thanks to her mom, and a Kamwali Bai's daughter saying, and that's how we did it. And a lot of monies were there for us. So we have to think all the time out of the box. We cannot just run between the same time plot of 7 to 11.
So basically for Doordarshan, it can do experiments because it's not governed by
and moreover, as he has said rightly, we don't interfere with the producer. We don't interfere. We give them a free hand the way they want to, whether it makes money or not, because there is no point of us to do the creativity part and that we involve ourselves in it.
So anyway, the question that I wanted to ask was that maybe
one of the broadcasters in the past. Honestly, to tell you the truth, to answer your question, Sukesh, I don't think we try hard enough. We've not really tried hard enough to do that. We should be trying. But whatever little efforts that have been made, also I think we do it on the fringe. We try to start off a nice story, which we all have a lot of faith and belief, and truly believe that this is slightly has that differentiated angle into it. But because we stay in the fringe, and the moment it doesn't rate, we don't have that patience to kind of stick on with it, and because we are always on that borderline, we try to shift the goalpost towards the area where there are chances of getting more hits are, plenty. So that's where we tend to kind of lose our conviction. And as a broadcaster, we are probably the first one to panic. So I too.
Okay. Anyway, the question was to do with whether there are newer business models. Anyway, the other question that I do need to address is about big ticket fiction. Is about big high impact fiction. We've had Youth, we've had 24. Fiction is one, the other is, of course, high impact non-fiction. Satyajit has directed, so there are that area also, but for that we will probably just come after fiction. But on high impact fiction, what's the future? Why is it so obsessed? Why are broadcasters seemingly, when it comes to such expensive fiction, obsessed with either movie directors or movie stars? So are there other ways to invest into fiction in a big way, probably create an episode which is 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs an episode, but is it very important that is it about only monetization or is it something else that you like? Because anyway, Z hasn't fortunately done.
So this seems like a broadcaster panel. So, try and take it and give them that share. I would like to.
No, actually a producer can, because at the end of the day, we also, whoever has been in I've been on both sides, but for you, why don't you just decide and go to a channel and walk up to a channel and say that I have this very expensive fiction, which is only probably 50 episodes or 100 episodes, but I want this much of money because I think, and it needs to be big ticket.
Once he's done, I'll add to it because I have a show which has been approved by Star. written by Renzel.
Okay.
Already in development, approved everywhere, but now it comes to cost, and because it's only 24 episodes.
But it doesn't need to depend on a star, or is it going to depend
No,
on
no, I'm saying take Sakshi Tanwar, take Rashmi, they all ready to do it.
Okay.
But the broadcaster says, no, we want a star. We want a big film director.
So, I mean, any
So
of
it's-
you can throw insight on that.
So it's been almost now for 1.5 years. It's approved by everybody on the network. And now I've been told, okay, now get Arjun Rajamani and do another show. What about the earlier show? So it's getting stuck into the same evolution that, okay, you get a big film director and work it out, and then the show doesn't do well, and then you say, oh, this model doesn't work. We shouldn't do differentiated television. We should do dailies because youth is bomb. Or 24, chalo, thank God they're doing season 2. But for whatever reason, they have a certain way of functioning. We guys have been doing television forever, but it boils down to that bigger name.
Do you think broadcasters are in awe of cinema people, makers, stars? I mean, is it only?
I don't know if they get marketing or they get sales with that. That's something you can. Because I don't think so. They're in awe of it, but if it's because Sanjay Bansali or anybody else, when my company did in '84, my father and mom on DD, we did Katha Sagar with Gulgush and Gulfam. I think that was golden television.
Yes.
When there was Tamas, there was Punya, there was really quality good television. Today I know as a creator, we have tried telling everybody that, okay, let's do a Katha Sagar again, let's do these episodic stories again, or let's do dailies as we decided in a week.
But right now the point was basically big ticket fiction. I just wanted to
The
beyond that,
bigger
is there
shows.
any insight that we can collectively throw that is there broadcasters obviously are going to be always grilled because since
Sorry, but I cut Sumit on it.
No, I agree with you to some extent. But Sanjay ji said a good thing, like insecurity, I believe, or fear is there. Okay, if you talk about a big show, suppose we are making a show and it's a successful show. So, some identification kind of a system is there, I believe, in broadcasting teams. Okay, these guys can deliver these kind of shows very well. And
so if
and that
Siddharth had taken a show like Everest to star, they
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it. Or they would have. I don't know.
I don't
That's a
know.
question that
I don't know. Like I'm now trying to tell broadcasters that we can deliver big budget shows also successfully. So it's
Number one,
identification is going on. So
I'll come in again. See, there is a cost, and that cost needs to be amortized over a shorter duration of episodes. Okay. So when that cost has to be amortized over a shorter duration of episodes, you need to make a big noise out of that. Okay. Everybody knows when big directors chip in their name, none of them actually go on the sets and direct. Okay. It is at the end of the day your good television directors who do the best. And the credit goes to whether it's Vipul or whether it's Abhay or Sanjay Bansali, whoever. So at the end of the day, it is executed by a television director. But probably, I'm not defending or not do I very strongly believe in this, but probably we believe that this noise that gets generated will probably help amortize the cost in a very shorter span of time, and maybe sales would be able to justify, and in the process, a creative will probably come clean out of it. That's the only reason. Otherwise, there's no big deal on it.
So this was on. In terms of Satyajit, I'd like to talk to you about that when it comes to non-fiction shows. I mean, this is again open to all panel. We've seen the fact that over the last few years, the ratings of talent hunt shows and the ratings of some of these shows has kind of started waning a bit. And then there has been an attempt in the last few years to again see what can work. I mean, is the singing show over? There's a question there, and then there is also. So in your case, since what is your when it comes to Satyamev Jayate, the show that you directed? Is there an insight? Do you feel that it managed to bring a lot of new viewers? Did it help the platform? What is your take on and I mean obviously then I'll open the question because it's an interesting experiment. it is of course driven by a huge star, and that is of course its key nature of the show. But has he overshadowed, or has the show really made a dent? I mean, it's something which is open. I mean, I don't have a view. I'm just.
Hello. Yeah. First, many apologies for being late. I had a perfect storm. Car breakdown in a traffic jam. Now to the question. Let me try and answer it as objectively as I can. Just some facts first. We had the option of choosing any slot that we wanted. In fact, the programmers at Star very much wanted us to take prime time, Saturday night, Sunday night, even Friday night. Any slot was open to us. The thought behind it was the good time to fish is when the fish are in the water. So you have a lot of viewers on television at prime time slots, so that's the time when you can draw the maximum number of eyeballs for your show at that point in time. But we chose to go in the opposite direction. I think that's a very important part of the answer to your question. We went at what we were assured was the graveyard hour, which is Sunday morning, when viewers don't come. The reason was very clear, is that we wanted appointment viewing where a person is not watching television and surfing between channels, but where a person has taken the trouble to wake up, sit in front of a television set, hopefully with the entire family, with the specific objective of watching this show, which would be there for a very limited period of time. In the first season we had 14, in the next we had just 5, and in the third we had 6. So it was very clearly something which was a very unusual kind of way of trying to push it, and a nightmare for the promotion team at Star. Not to mention sales, etc. Now, did we in that experiment succeed in bringing new viewers? Now, there can be two kinds of answers to this question. One is at the level of ratings, and in fact I wanted to interject when you were talking about India and Bharat and different aesthetics and different viewers. I think yes, there are different aesthetics and different viewers, which is not based on city versus countryside or affluent versus not so affluent, but it is really based on individual taste and predilection, and you will find in every class of society, every section of society, different tastes. Does STAM reflect the cross section of these tastes? I dare say it doesn't. In fact, I think it's the single biggest impediment to any kind of experimentation by a broadcaster. I understand the pressures that broadcasters are subject to. In fact, I can only imagine them. They're so severe, because they live from one rating day to another, and the pressure of sales, the pressure of fine-tuning stories to meet certain, and you know, what I find as an outsider, because I'm really not a veteran of television in any sense of the term, but I find it absolutely astounding that correlations are drawn between tweaks in stories and characters and plots and the subsequent kind of impact it has on ratings. I have a theory about it, but the heart of it, I mean, without getting too humorous about it, is that I don't think they reflect the cross-section of this country, and that is a very, very big impediment. In the case of Satyamev Jayate, I think our viewership therefore was in that sense a unique viewership. It was a viewership which was a loyal viewership, it was not a viewership which was surfing between channels, and it was not a viewership which necessarily otherwise watches television. So I do think that we drew in viewers all over the world. Now, what do I have to back this up? Essentially, what I have to back this up is the kind of volumes we generated on social media. I mean, they've been absolutely absurd. There is just no, I mean, this is not to boast about our show at all. I mean, I just feel that this is an audience which is ripe and waiting for more shows like this. So please, this is by no stretch am I trying to speak about the show. But yeah, certainly I think we drew in, but we had in the billions just for these 6 episodes. We had several billions of Twitter impressions. We trended #1 worldwide on every single show. Our first season, we had 22 lakh unique messages sent to us for the first show, 20 lakh unique messages sent for the second episode. So these are very, very large numbers. Even the votes which we gathered, even if you discount people who are repeating their calls, and these are very strictly audited and available in the public domain. in season 2, the minimum number of votes we had was 30 lakhs
I want to make
per
a comment
episode.
on the
Satyamev Jayate, we also simulcast with Star. And what he says is right, two factors were prominent. One was Mr. Amir Khan himself, because such programming Doordarshan has been doing, there was nothing new. But yes, public service broadcasting, what you call. But Mr. Amir Khan made all the difference, yes. And two, on the same slot, later on when Satyamev Jayate was ended, we put Buddha there from Z, simulcast. And it was a great flop. So Satyamev Jayate himself has the credit, I would say. And we brought in a lot of viewers. We also made a lot of money on that program.
So I'm really happy to hear that. I'm sure Star is waiting to hear about it.
The other angle that I wanted to address the content makers, especially is that I think Tarun did capture a bit of that, but again the whole context of content, people who are creating content for broadcasters, why are we, I mean, do you always look up to the broadcaster to take for risk-taking ability? There is a system there in the US where all producers will gather and they create this first look, and they're able to have these one-to-one meetings and they've created something. They may have their favorite broadcasters. So, what is stopping the content creators here from saying that, okay, I'm going to invest, I'm going to create something that I want to tell, and I will then show it to all broadcasters on my terms. And then, so, is there, what is it? Is it a mindset issue? Is it too much of fear that?
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि एज अ राइटर ओनली कि if there is some new differentiator idea, मैं डिपेंड करता हूँ ब्रॉडकास्टर, either broadcaster or the producer. Suppose I get a producer also, but not necessarily कि वो आइडिया ब्रॉडकास्टर को उतना ही एक्साइट
नहीं आइडिया नहीं, मैं तो इनफैक्ट इस हद तक कह रहा हूँ कि प्रोड्यूसर्स ने अब तक पायलट्स क्यों बनाना छोड़ दिया? एक ज़माने में बनते थे. Of course I know broadcast.
Yes, I made 2 pilots. Okay.
I made 5.
We are doing good. Couple of shows doing well. So I thought let's try to make the content you love. So to convince the broadcaster, let's make the pilot. I always believe that visual appeal is going to help. So I made pilots on my own, and I'm just trying to meet and circulating, but I'm not getting that kind of response because I don't know other side of the story. Maybe they have some research with them, okay, these kind of programs. Somewhere we are very research driven kind of a market in India. So, but I believe in that kind of content, but now I fear to make more content like this because I have spent X amount to make such pilots. So there is a limit for us, because we are, of course, willing to get the broadcasters on our side for the.
Can I just interject as an outsider, someone who has not been a broadcaster, who has not been a producer, and who has very limited interface with television, but I have friends. My sense of it is that, there is no villain in this other than TAM. I think the problem is that TAM has created an ecosystem which is an extremely dangerous ecosystem. So, उसमें ये होता है.
That's a different debate, sir.
No, but I'll completely
let me just complete my point. Like Katha Sagar is a show I grew up watching. I would love to watch that, but I will never get reflected in TAM.
Okay.
I think मुझे लगता है सुकेश एक वक्त था when I was working with a broadcaster, there was a system के pilots बनते थे. एक के बाद एक ढेरों pilots आते थे. We used to sit and watch the pilots, and many a time, most of the time rather, there was a duplication of the concepts. So it means अगर एक subject पे आपको 4 pilot देखने को मिल रहे हैं, तो आपका उतना ही पैसा वेस्ट हुआ है उस एक concept को लेकर. और उसमें मुझे लगता है
So currently we are in a system where consumer insights via broadcaster are helping drive the content. And there's nothing wrong or right. We're not here to label it as of now. We're just trying to see that evolution of this process should happen in such a way maybe where there is, apart from consumer insighting, there's always got to be the space for some original storytelling, some storytelling that may not really pass any research test. That's the debate that I was trying to incite here. But, which is one. The other I wanted to ask veterans especially, that since 4G is obviously going to be a reality, since online viewing is going to be a reality, is there, I mean, how is that going to affect storytelling evolution? How is that going to really affect what platforms are going to, because that is another sort of very fascinating, because Zindagi might be a bigger YouTube hit than TAM hit. So are these opportunities also going to create new business models that are going to be monetized? Is there hope? Yeah.
Yes, I think so, because already if you see, research shows that the content which is consumed in hand, which is in mobile, which is now 3 hours per day, and television viewing has reduced to 2 hours. So it is going to be there, and as a new form of carriages comes up, because Doordarshan is also trying to bring a carriage, I don't know if you're aware, which is digital terrestrial. We have this analog terrestrial which is no more now. With digital terrestrial, people can watch the entire content and while they are moving also. So 4G is going to make a difference, I personally feel. And short stories, fast storytelling is going to be, there may not be a long story session.
Just a sort of a quick reaction. 4G is certainly a very interesting and enabling, distribution platform, so which will allow a consumer to also be non-linearly involved with you as a experience. Whether we as creators are ready for it, I'm not sure. With the quantum of content that we have, which is currently more linear design and not designed for engagement in a non-linear manner. But having said that, obviously it's on the radar, so there will be work done, in that space to make sure that the second level of engagement that is available, is provided to the consumer. What will be important is obviously, forums like these, so that it helps people to be able to look beyond the curtain and understand that there are different realities, and to acknowledge those realities and then see how collectively in the ecosystem we can generate greater consumer interest. It's very difficult to keep the consumers interested in a concept. It's extremely challenging. 4G will enable you to be able to keep that relationship going, by being non-linearly engaged. While theoretically it sounds interesting, but practically it is a challenge, because you still have content creators or writers who are writing for linear storytelling formats, right? So it's a learning for all of us. I think it's a great idea to bring in people from developed markets to bring experiences where they actually extend that experience in fiction. That's it. So, for us, our team is here to listen and participate in this workshop, to also be ready for an age which will, enable linear as well as non-linear.
I mean, to what extent is the TV platform going to be relevant is another question that which will drive whether it's appointment viewing or whether it's any of all these questions that you sort of see.
It might throw up a lot of questions, but there is a big segment which sits back and consumes television. They like you to program for them. If you look at even developed markets, that does consume a significant chunk. But there is also a growing segment which likes to play around with the content. And that will also, make itself more expressive with 4G being rolled out in a wider manner. So the environment will enable that opportunity. Now, how many people will seize it will depend upon who have the vision and who have the wherewithal to jump into the future and deal with what future presents itself. Right? It's the creator as well as the platform.
Yeah.
I'd like some collective takeaways from this. One, you said that there's not enough experimentation happening because of consumer insights. Am I right in that? In terms of time bands, slots, is that right? Or we are too stuck to consumer insights? Some common takeaways, some things which the broadcast industry and the producers can take away and maybe take it the next step. So if I can have some of that from all of you, what are the common takeaways you can have?
I'm of course going to be speaking as a content, but I'd like to believe that the industry needs to move in a direction where there has to be a very clearly decided strategy within because it's still a broadcaster's market. It's all in this ecosystem. I don't see it changing for some quite a. Now within the ecosystem, I think what broadcasters will have to do essentially is divide very clearly between storytellers that they believe are going to deliver that gut that instinct on which storyteller can deliver a story which may not have any of their consumer insights getting ticked. And obviously they will have to go by, I mean 50 to 60% of their content is going to be driven by, okay, what they feel is going to be directly, I mean what consumer insights they feel is going to get them their audiences or broader audiences. Now whether it's, as Paddy's put it very clearly, that he doesn't believe that in India or, I mean there has to be, each show will find its own audience. So, you want to add to that, Paddy?
You know, one is to try and look at our country in partitions, the other is to look at it as a whole. So it depends upon how you want to see it. I just believe that we are constantly evolving, you know, and there are segments within segments. And when you start feeling that, you know, the example that, you know, you just provided of Twitter expressions and, you know, votes and interactivity that you build, that is one existence and that is a critical segment to acknowledge, right? There is another segment which sits back and watches television, which you cannot discount. So, you know, we are in a continuous transient environment, and we need to acknowledge it. The more that you think you will partition and operate, the more trickier it's going to be, because let's also understand that monetization of digital is not a challenge which is unique to India. It's a challenge which is, you know, is universal to the world. So when in a country like ours, with the level of knowledge we have of this beautiful world called digital, with the limited understanding we have of business models that need to stand on their head, and our ability to be able to make those big changes, which are very nice to write down but very difficult to implement. It's not an overnight thing that somebody can just say, okay, break it up into pieces and start looking at it very, very differently. Right? So there will be an amalgamated set which sits back. There will be a set which will lean forward and engage, and you need to be able to connect with each of these segments. And you know,
when is there a very takeaway on sales? I mean, when it comes to advertisers and they're going on a certain number,
right.
Why has there been? I mean, I'm a little lame on this one, but I'm going to put it to you very clearly. That do advertisers have they come to a stage where they say, okay, this show like has a youth skew or has a young skew. It may only deliver in the 4+, CNS 4+, say 1.8 for but it's but can it be monetized only with the help of that skew? Do advertisers have sales guys been able to create? Are there ways where shows with niche audiences? I mean, I don't mean, when I say niche, I don't mean 10% of a mass hit. Maybe what I mean is say 60% of a mass hit, or like a Diya Bati, if it's at 6 and there's another show which is at 1.9, but it does very well and it's in its. So is there hope there that maybe the advertiser can sell, maybe the sales of a channel or a network can sell it with a lot more and get probably the same price, or maybe is there some hope there, or is it always going to be mass consumption, mass numbers, so all these specific audiences that maybe sales can go and probably create a package out for with that? Is that sort of completely?
Basically making shows only for SCCD, and that's what we've been told.
So, you know, part of my life was on the media planning side, so I'll borrow a little from there, and Sam would be the best person to answer that. But the reality is that a marketer is looking at moving his product off the shelf, right? So he wants to reach as many people that he can, but in the right context. So today, a salesperson, because he's a salesperson for years, many salespeople do not understand the brand or the planning aspect, right? So like production houses have a curtain when it's with broadcasters, a similar curtain is also between the seller and the buyer. So, you know, as these curtains come down and training levels go up for salespeople to understand and appreciate what's on the other side, you know, things like, you know, making sense out of Twitter volume, you know, taking that information out to advertisers and showing them that, you know, there is this level of engagement. That's going to fuel, you know, the next age of new content development. So, you know, the sales teams need to be able to speak that language with that degree of conviction and confidence, because there are people on the other side who are ready to listen, right? So, compiling this information, getting a house in order to be able to take the right kind of
That's going to be one evolution that one is hoping that within broadcasting setups will have.
That is entirely the onus of broadcasters, let me tell you. You know, with all kudos to the way that, you know, Satyamev Jayate was put out and, you know, today gets evaluated. It doesn't just get evaluated on the basis of what audience it aggregates on television. it gets, acknowledged for the surround, activity that it creates. So, it's important therefore to understand that even as broadcasters, we have the responsibility on various fronts, to carry the care.
I think what he said, that we need to, as sellers, as broadcasters, we need to add those little value and show it to the media buyers and channels that there is value beyond ratings and beyond viewership. The noise, the buzz is also important. So maybe that can be a takeaway which broadcasters can then use it to push the content piece.
Correct. But Anil, just sorry, I'll take just a minute. But broadly, I think we stay hugely in denial of a fact that there is a Bharat which is watching the show. Okay? And there's a great consumer insight that a channel brings. For example, Diya Aur Bati. It's a great aspirational story. Okay? It's just that maybe at an intellectual level where we sit, it doesn't connect to our sensibilities as strongly as it should do probably. We have divided, it's not meant for us, but it's for somebody else.
This wasn't bashing of
No, I'm saying the consumer insights. No, important thing is that consumer insights are impacting hugely, okay, and they do in different ways. So,
See, but
there's been great success
Twitter's going to go
stories,
Hindi,
as well.
Twitter's going to go Hindi, Twitter's going to go to language zones. Even that will impact, but broadcasters need to understand whether it's in Hindi or English, the buzz that's created is then, taught to the sales guys, and the sales guys then push it to the media planners to get better value for the program. That's all. It's not about English or Hindi or India or Bharat. So one takeover which can have better training for
since
sales.
it's a success which drives, and since it's a ratings which makes us things last for 5 years or 6 years, or some doesn't last for even 3 months.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
I can just sum it up because television we call it as a medium and it's always remain uncooked. It's always be a medium. It will never be fully cooked. So that's all.